All right, so we're going deep on this LLM as a judge research today. You
Yeah.
sent this over, and I gotta say, it's pretty mind-bending stuff.
It is, yeah.
We're talking about using large language models to judge and evaluate almost anything,
Yeah.
right?
Pretty much.
From how helpful a piece of text is to
Uh,
whether a robot's making a good decision.
yeah, it's really fascinating how this is kind of moving us beyond those traditional evaluation methods.
Right.
You remember those old metrics like BLEU and Rouge?
Oh, yeah.
They were useful, but they were very focused on just
Yeah.
surface level things like word overlap.
Right, right.
But now with LLMs, we're actually talking about evaluating the actual quality and meaning.
Okay, so it's less about ticking boxes and more about getting a nuanced understanding of
Exact.
and bad.
It's like moving beyond the quantitative and into the qualitative.
I like that.
Yeah, imagine an LLM acting as a judge in a writing competition. Instead of just looking at grammar and spelling it, can actually assess things like creativity,
Oh, wow.
coherence, even emotional impact.
Yeah, that's
Or think about a researcher who's sifting through tons of scientific papers.
hmm
An LLM could help them very quickly identify the most relevant and impactful studies.
Okay, so that makes sense. But how do you actually train an LLM
Right.
to be a good judge?
Yeah.
Do they have some built-in moral compass or something?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
It really all comes down to the data and the training methods.
Okay.
One approach is called tuning,
hmm
where you're essentially fine-tuning an LLM on a data set of judgments.
Okay.
So imagine you're showing the LLM a bunch of pieces of writing,
Yeah.
and each of them is labeled with a quality score.
Got it.
Over time, the LLM learns to associate certain features
Right.
of the writing with higher or lower scores.
So it's almost like
Yeah.
training a pet, right?
It is.
You reward them for good behavior, and eventually they learn what you expect.
That's a great analogy.
Okay, cool. And then there's prompting, you said.
The other approach is called prompting,
Okay.
and that's where you're basically guiding the LLM's judgment process
Right.
in real time using specific instructions.
Okay.
So you could tell an LLM to judge the helpfulness of a chatbot response
hmm
based on how well it answers the user's question and stays on topic.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But isn't there a risk that those
Yeah,
judgments become kind of too rigid?
that's a great point.
I mean, humans are pretty good at adapting to new situations and considering different perspectives.
Yeah,
Can LLMs do that?
that's a really important point. And researchers are actually working on developing more sophisticated
Okay.
prompting techniques to address that.
Okay.
One example is rule augmentation, where you're essentially embedding specific principles or guidelines directly into the prompt.
Interesting.
So this allows the LLM to make judgments that are more aligned with human values and expectations.
Okay, that's pretty clever. But what about all those other different ways of
Right.
training LLMs to judge that you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
like swapping operation or
Yeah.
multi-agent collaboration? Those sounded pretty wild.
Yeah, those are some of the techniques that researchers are using to try to make
Okay.
these LLM judgments more robust and reliable.
Okay.
So for example, swapping operation involves running the judgment twice,
Mm-hmm.
but swapping the order of the candidates.
Got it.
So this helps reduce any potential positional bias.
So it's like making sure the judge isn't swayed by who walks through the door first.
Exactly. And then multi-agent collaboration is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
This technique involves using multiple LLMs
Mhm.
to actually debate and discuss,
Wow.
with a final judge LLM making the ultimate decision.
Wait, so it's like a whole panel of AI judges deliberating on a case?
Yeah.
That sounds like straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it actually has a lot of potential to improve the quality and fairness of LLM judgments.
Okay.
By incorporating different perspectives
Mhm.
and allowing for debate, we can reduce the risk of bias and hopefully arrive at more nuanced decisions.
So we've established that these LLMs can be judges
Right?
and they can be trained using all sorts of techniques.
Yeah.
But I'm still a little fuzzy on what exactly they can judge.
Yeah.
Is it limited to text or can they evaluate other types of things too?
The range of what LLMs can judge is expanding all the time.
Okay.
So they can assess things like the helpfulness of a customer service chatbot,
hmm
the relevance of a search result,
Wow.
the creativity of a piece of artwork, or even the safety of a self-driving car's maneuvers.
Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah.
This is starting to feel like the future of decision making,
It really is.
where AI systems play a much more active role in evaluating and shaping our world.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away, let's dig a little deeper into the specific things that LLMs can judge.
Okay, so one area where these LLM judges are really like shaking things up
Okay.
is in evaluating tasks that involve open-ended generation.
Mm-hmm.
So think about things like uh, writing a story,
Yeah.
composing a poem, or having like a natural flowing conversation with a chatbot.
Right.
These are areas where those traditional metrics with their emphasis on like fixed answers really fall short.
You're right. It's like trying to judge a dance competition based solely on
Yeah.
how well the dancers hit their marks.
Exactly.
You miss out on like the artistry, the emotion, the
Yeah.
overall impact.
And that's where LLMs can really excel.
Okay.
They can assess qualities like creativity,
Wow.
coherence, originality,
Okay.
even the emotional resonance of a piece of text.
So could these LLMs act as sort of like AI writing coaches then,
Absolutely.
giving us feedback on
Yeah.
our creative work?
And consider this, we're generating more content than ever before.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true.
Text, images, videos.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. LLMs could play a crucial role in helping us sift through all that noise
Oh,
and identify the truly valuable and insightful pieces.
that makes sense, but it also raises a concern for me.
Yeah.
If these LLMs are trained on existing data, couldn't they end up penalizing work?
Right.
That's too different.
Yeah.
Too outside the box.
That's a really crucial point.
We wouldn't want to stifle innovation.
Yeah, the data that these LLMs learn from needs to be very diverse and representative,
Okay.
or they do risk reinforcing existing biases and norms.
Right.
That's why human oversight is still essential.
Yeah.
We need to make sure these systems are fostering creativity, not limiting it.
Speaking of limitations, one of the articles mentioned that LLMs
Yeah.
particularly good at judging longer pieces of writing.
Mhm.
Why is that?
Well, LLMs are trained on massive amounts of text data.
Yeah.
This gives them an uncanny ability to understand the nuances of language,
Okay.
the structure, the semantics, the flow.
Got it.
They can pick up on subtle patterns and inconsistencies that we as humans might miss.
So it's like having a superpowered editor who can analyze your entire manuscript for clarity, coherence, impact.
Exactly.
That's pretty impressive.
It is. But even with all their strengths,
Okay.
there was one area where LLMs still struggle,
Okay, what's that?
and that's judging factuality.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
The problem of AI sounding very convincing even when they're making stuff up.
Precisely judging factuality is incredibly complex,
Yeah.
even for humans.
It is.
It requires cross-referencing sources, understanding context,
Right.
even recognizing subtle forms of deception.
So how do we teach LLMs to be better fact checkers?
Well, one approach is to give them access to external knowledge bases,
Okay.
like Wikipedia or specialized databases.
So it's like giving them a research library at their fingertip.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Allowing them to verify claims and identify potential inaccuracies.
And are researchers training these LLMs specifically on how to spot fake news and misinformation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
By exposing LLMs to data sets of fact-checked articles and claims,
Mm-hmm.
they can start to learn the telltale signs of reliable information versus misinformation. It's like giving them a crash course in critical thinking and media literacy.
It seems like kind of a balancing act, though.
It is.
We want LLMs to be creative and come up with new ideas,
Yeah,
but we also need them to be grounded in reality
Yep.
and avoid spreading falsehoods.
right.
How do we navigate that tension?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
It's going to require a combination of approaches,
Okay.
better training data,
Yeah.
more sophisticated algorithms,
Yeah.
and perhaps most importantly, ongoing human oversight.
Right. We can't just unleash these powerful systems without thinking about
Exactly.
the potential impact.
We need to be very careful.
Okay, that makes sense. Now I'm curious about another area
Sure.
where these LLM judges are making waves, and that's reasoning
Mhm.
and problem solving.
Okay.
As AI systems become more autonomous,
Yeah,
this seems particularly crucial.
it is.
How exactly are LLMs being used to judge the way other AI systems think? So when we talk about LLMs judging reasoning,
Yeah.
are we talking like logic puzzles and math problems,
Yeah.
or is it something more?
It's actually both.
Okay.
LLMs are being used to evaluate how other AI systems think
Mm,
across a whole range of tasks, from like solving simple equations
right.
to navigating really complex social situations.
So it's not just about checking the final answer.
Right.
It's about understanding the thought process
Exactly.
that led to that answer.
LLMs can assess whether the reasoning is logical,
Okay.
efficient, and even whether it shows like a spark of creativity.
That's fascinating. It's almost like having an AI tutor
Yeah.
who can not only tell you if you got the problem right,
Right.
but also explain why and suggest different approaches.
That's a great way to think about it.
Okay, cool.
And this becomes especially important when you consider the field of autonomous agents.
Okay.
So these are AI systems that can operate independently,
Mm-hmm.
making decisions and taking actions on their own.
So things like self-driving cars.
Yeah.
Or robots working in warehouses and hospitals.
Exactly. For these systems to be truly effective,
Yeah.
they need to be able to reason and problem solve on the fly
Right.
in environments that are constantly changing.
They can't just rely on pre-programmed
Yeah.
rules.
They need to be able to think for themselves.
That's a little scary.
It is a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so where do the LLMs come in?
So that's where these LLM judges come in.
Okay.
They can be used to evaluate the reasoning of these autonomous agents.
Mm-hmm.
Are they making sound judgments? Are there any hidden biases
Wow.
in their decision making? Could they have chosen a better course of action?
So it's like having an AI equivalent of a flight recorder,
Yeah,
constantly monitoring and analyzing
exactly.
decisions these agents are making.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay.
And this technology has the potential to significantly enhance the safety and reliability
All right.
of these autonomous systems.
Okay.
By constantly scrutinizing their reasoning, we can identify potential problems early on
Sure.
and ensure that these systems are operating as intended.
This is all incredibly promising,
Yeah.
but I can't help but think back to our earlier discussion about the potential for bias in LLMs.
Right.
If an LLM judge itself is trained on biased data,
Yeah.
could it inadvertently lead an autonomous agent
Right.
to make biased decisions as well?
It's a valid concern,
Yeah.
and it's one that researchers are very aware of.
Okay.
The data used to train these LLM judges needs to be very carefully vetted
Yeah.
to ensure that it's as unbiased and representative as possible.
So we need to be just as vigilant about the training data for these LLM judges
Yeah.
as we are for the AI systems they're evaluating.
Absolutely. Ultimately, the goal should be to create a collaborative ecosystem
Okay.
where humans and AI systems can work together.
I like that.
We need to combine the strengths of both,
Right.
the flexibility and creativity of human judgment,
Yeah.
with the speed and analytical power of AI.
This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive
It has.
into the world of LLM as a judge technology. Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground from the basic principles
We have.
to the potential benefits and risks.
Mhm.
And it seems like this technology has the potential to reshape
Yeah.
how we interact with and evaluate
Absolutely.
AI systems in some really profound ways.
It's a rapidly evolving field,
It is,
and it's really exciting to think about what the future holds.
for sure.
But one thing is clear. LLM as a judge technology raises some really important questions
Okay.
about the nature of intelligence judgment and the role of AI in our lives.
It's been a fascinating exploration
Yeah, it has.
of this new frontier in AI. And for our listeners,
Yes.
here's something to ponder
Mhm.
as we hand over more and more decision-making power
Right.
to AI systems.
Mm-hmm.
How do we ensure that those decisions reflect our values, our ethics,
Yeah.
and our shared vision for the future?
That's a great question.
It's a question we'll all need to grapple with
Yeah,
as this technology continues to evolve.
for sure.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.